Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective.
Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. I'm your host, Ray Flowers. You can follow me on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all those places at the Ray Flowers. You can find me here most of the weeks, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This week we changed things up a little bit, and I'm here on a Wednesday. Justin Fensterman filled in for me on a Monday, so I'm switching shifts with him, and I'll be here obviously today. I'll be here today, tomorrow, and Friday as well. Fantasy Sports Daily is powered by FantasyGuru.com. It's a free show, Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern. And on Mondays, we usually go solo. I usually spend an hour talking baseball on Mondays, reviewing the weekend, fab, all that kind of stuff. And then Tuesday through Friday, we are joined by the staff of FantasyGuru.com. All of them come in about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, about a half hour into the show, to have a discussion about basketball, about football, about whatever it is that we feel is worthy of our time and your time. And so hopefully you enjoy the show here. Tell a friend, spread the word, all that kind of stuff. You can see the show all the time. Yeah, you can see it. You can also leave comments and questions throughout the show that we will address live. You go to facebook.com/fantasyguruhq, Twitter X at FantasyGuruSite. You can also go to the old YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. All three of those places, you can watch live. You can watch it on demand, of course, as well. But you can leave comments and questions that we can address. You can also go to FantasyGuru.com. Just click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. That'll take you to the show in podcast form. You can do a little typing. Type in Fantasy Sports Today. Type in Fantasy Sports Today to your podcast network, wherever that might be, and you can find us. Pandora, Spotify, all those places. So check us out. Spread the word. All that good stuff. What are we talking about today? Well, let's toss it up on the screen. Got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk baseball for about 25 minutes here before we talk some football with Rich Maletto, the fantasy Bosco. You see him all the time. He's a monster in Discord over at FantasyGuru.com. So get a chance to see him. He'll visit with us today for about a half an hour. And we're going to spend most of the visit today talking about Dynasty leagues. Our Dynasty league Discord room has been blowing up for, a month and a half now, basically since the NFL draft. So lots of people asking questions on a daily basis there. And I thought it'd be a good time for Rich and I, who oftentimes write a lot in Discord, to actually have a discussion verbally, so that you all can get a little bit more sense of what we're hoping to help you accomplish as you're building these Dynasty squads. So we'll talk about that with Rich Maletto here in about 25 minutes. Before then, some big names, some small names, lots to discuss in baseball. A couple of injuries, but mostly we're staying away from injuries today. There's a few that we'll have to discuss, but mostly just good and bad performances, which is kind of a nice break, right? Now, not that there aren't injuries to talk about, but let's not do that as heavily today as we have on many other days. By the way, before we talk that baseball, don't forget the fantasy football product is available over at FantasyGuru.com. We've got IDP rankings, rookie rankings, PPR rankings, non-PPR rankings, dynasty rankings. I don't know, what else did I leave out? Best ball rankings, left that out. We got a lot of rankings over at FantasyGuru.com. We've got articles coming out on a daily basis. We'll have a podcast series, like 20 podcasts will be coming out here in short order. So the bottom line is you can get signed up right now for the fantasy football product, and there's 50 articles up already. I'm making that number up, but there's a lot already. And there'll continue to be articles every day now until the season begins. And remember, when you sign up with us at FG, it's a full season product. So we're not just giving you articles for the next, 2 months, and then we abandon you. You get it all season long. You can sign up for the DFS football package, the seasonal football package, the wagering football package. You can sign up for 2 of the packages. You can sign up for all 3 of the packages. Note, you also get UFL. You get college football with that. So you get a nice little bonus there as well if you sign up for those packages. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com, support@fantasyguru.com, or simply click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Let's go. All right, let's talk some baseball. Big stories, little stories, some fantasy forward stories I thought we'd focus on today. And some names that we're going to talk about here are names but names we haven't really talked about much on the show or in an article over at fantasyguru.com. By the way, today over at FG, because of the way the schedule works out, I'm not going to be able to write raised plays. I'm about ready to sneeze. Sorry for that. I'm not going to be able to write raised plays today because of the schedule I'm going off the Elite Sports Show. So I'm doing this show 12 to 1 Eastern. The Elite Sports Show with Jeff Mans is 3 to 6 Monday through Friday Eastern Time on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. I'm with Jeff every Wednesday. So I'm here from 12 to 1 Eastern. I'm with Jeff 3 to 6 Eastern. Then I've got my show with Justin Fensterman tonight from 8 to 10 Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's Elite Sports Game Time. So that 6 hours of talking today. I don't have time to do the DFS article. I will hopefully have time to get up a rookie review. We're almost at the halfway point, close-ish, about a week away from the halfway point of the baseball season. So wanted to look at the rookies. So hopefully I'll be able to get that up today over at fantasyguru.com. No, by the way, the baseball package you can get to now too. Go to the site, click the subscribe tab in the top right corner, and you get all the baseball coverage for one price. We're not selling seasonal and DFS and wagering separately anymore. All of it together, one price. All the work we do baseball-wise, all of it, one price right now. The rest of the way at fantasyguru.com. Okay, Andy Pages had a couple of home runs yesterday. 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored, went 4 for 4. And with all the star power, and we have said on numerous occasions, pretty much everyone has it, the Dodgers might be the most talent-laden team in baseball history, right? No one talks about Andy Pages, and I get it. Totally understand why. He's not a sexy name compared to all these others. And we got Hall of Famers on this team. We got guys making $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 million. Like, Andy Pages is just doing his thing, and he's hitting 290 with a 500 slugging percentage. Got 15 home runs, 49 RBIs, 6 steals. Andy Pages is basically on pace, to go 290, 30, 100, 120, which is a fantastic season. There, I mean, I just wanted to shout out, man. Like, you know, when you start talking about big boy numbers like that, I mean, these are Hall of Fame level numbers that he's producing, and I don't hear anyone ever talk about it. Maybe no one's ever asked a question or commented because he's, you know, you don't have him on your team. Maybe it's because, you know, you're just thinking he's this good. I don't know, but he's been really, really good. 18% strikeout rate. I'd love to see him walk more than the 5% walk rate that he's got right now. But the 18% strikeout rate, really good. The batted ball data is not great. Doesn't hit the ball as hard as some other guys, and I would expect there to be some slowdown in the second half. But 2015, 80-80, I mean, this kind of stuff seems with health like it's just going to happen with him this season. Just wanted to give him a shout out. He deserved it. John D says, hello, Mr. Flowers in chat. Well, hello, John D, with your Spider-Man logo there. I appreciate that. Yes. Welcome to the chat. Hello to Tim, to Angelo, everyone else that's viewing and watching and listening and all that as well. Kyle Tucker. Now we go from one end of things, Andy Pages, who no one's really talking about, to Kyle Tucker, who everyone always talks about. But really, there's been a lot of Seiya Suzuki. There's been a lot of Pete Crow Armstrong. There hasn't been as much Kyle Tucker talk out of the Cubs space because of all these other guys that have been so dynamic. Kyle Tucker had a couple of doubles yesterday. He went 3 for 4. And, you know, it's really fascinating to see that he's got 13 home runs, 18 steals. So basically, he's on a 30-30 pace, 25-40. He's basically on that kind of a pace. And that's who he is, right? And the question is, where is he going to be playing next year? He's going to be a free agent. Things couldn't have been going much better than they have with the Cubs thus far. I don't know. We haven't heard any whispers about Tucker signing a long-term extension. I would assume Cubs fans, I would assume the Cubs would love to have him there long-term. But he's hitting 280 with a 390 on-base percentage and a 500 slugging percentage. And sometimes guys, they kind of fall into a groove of being the same guy year after year, that consistency that we love. And sometimes you get a little numb to the success these guys have, I think. And I think in the case of Kyle Tucker, I took him in like all my leagues this year. And I'm obviously very pleased with his performance. I haven't heard anyone talk about Kyle Tucker at all. And again, maybe it's just because he's doing Kyle Tucker things and he's a top 10 MVP candidate, and that's fine. But shout out, bro. Like, again, 30-30 seems like it's just coming down the pipe here with just health. And, he's almost out of 300, 400, 500 slash too, which is the Titan zone. That's a Hall of Fame level slash line. Great start to the season, as many of his Cubs mates have had as well for Kyle Tucker. Salvador Perez got a question about him in Discord this morning over at fantasyguru.com. And we actually talked about him last night on the Elite Sports Game Time Show, 8 to 10 Eastern. He has been disappointing. And it's going to take a hell of a second half for him to live up to expectations. We're about the halfway point. And, I think coming into the season, most people would say Salvador Perez, 25-85, 25 home runs, 85 RBIs. That's basically who he's been for a decade anyway. A little higher, a little lower. Had that one magical season, but that's basically who he's been. He's on pace to go about 1880. So, a hot month with the home run bat, maybe a hot second half, maybe he still gets to 2580. So it's not out of the realm of possibility at all that he can get there. The problem is it's just been a rough first half. Hitting 240, he's not legging out any base hits anymore. He hits a lot of fly balls, so the batting average is just not likely to be much better than it is now. 279 on base percentage is terrible. That's just bad. He's not a great offensive player. But that's different than being a good fantasy option at a catcher position, right? It's a totally different scenario. He can still be a high-end catcher, even if he's not a very good offensive player, if that makes sense. His slugging percentage is 395. Now, that is woof. And, you hear a number like that and you think, Salvador Perez? Like, this guy's number should be 495 or at least 475, right? Career number is 456. He's gotten much better here the last couple of weeks. And if you look at the data here with him, we talk about his exit velocity is right on his career mark. His launch angle is right on his career mark. His hard hit rate is right on his career mark. Interestingly enough, his barrel rate would be a 4-year high. 14% would be the second best mark of his career. So there are still moments where he puts the bat on the baseball with a great amount of oomph. And if you look at his expected slugging, that number is still over 500, even though his raw slugging percentage is 395. So the bottom line is there are signs for Perez, not only the recent production in the last couple of weeks, but there are signs beneath the surface with Perez that suggest strongly that things are going to get much better in the second half. If you have him, keep the faith. If someone's willing to dangle him at a lower than expected cost, not a bad addition there for Salvador Perez, likely to have a better second half than the first half. Jack Caglianone is somebody that we need to talk about. And, this is, and again, I'll write about him today in the rookie article over at FG if I can get it done. 0-for-4 last night with 2 strikeouts. When you talk about a guy barely having 50 plate appearances, as I say all the time, stay with me, folks. It's not enough data to make a conclusion. Clearly not enough data to draw any conclusions with any player, let alone a guy who's supposed to be a superstar and, a top 20 prospect in all of baseball, Jack Caglianone of the Royals. He's played outfield 8 times and first base 4 times. So we have a guy that is looking very much like a dual position guy this season and potentially next year, depending upon what your rules are, which is great. In fact, he's probably dual eligible right now because many leagues are 5 games in season and he came up as a first baseman and he's played outfield 8 times. If not 10 for many. If it's 20, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, but dual position eligible looks like we're going to get that. But through, 13 games with the Royals, he hasn't produced. He's hitting 190. So OPS is 450. Woof. Now, 23% strikeout rate, totally fine. We can deal with that. No problem. League average. He's got 1 walk in 13 games. That's a problem. And, to be successful with the walk rate like that is extremely difficult. Certainly not where you want to be when you're a rookie. So let's look at his let's do a little deep dive here. His O-swing, his pitches he's swinging outside the strike zone is 38%. That's a high number. And what that tells you is that he's falling behind in the count, which he is a lot. First pitch strike rate of 65%. So pitchers are not afraid to throw strike 1 to him. They get strike 1 to him and he starts expanding the strike zone. Now, he's done a good job again controlling the strikeouts, so that's good to see. But falling behind in the count, he's not working the count to the point where he's in high leverage scenarios, and he's not working the count to the point where he's able to draw walks. And that makes him a less effective offensive player. So there are things to work on here. Another thing to work on with him, interestingly enough, big dude, power bat. It's another one of these guys like Caminero, like James Wood. 5% launch angle. It's really low. I'd want any guy that I want consistently hitting 25 to 30 home runs, I want that number to be 10+%. If it's 15%, I love it. 20%, we're starting to get there. 25, we're starting to get a little high. But the bottom line is 5% is half of where we need that number to be for Caglianone, given his offensive game. So things to keep in mind with him. Exit velocity is pretty good. Hard hit rate's pretty good. His usage of the field is pretty solid, 46% center rate. So he's not pulling off the ball. He's hitting it back up the middle. So give him some time. A little bit of a rough start, but it's been a handful of games. No reason to panic, though. We need to keep an eye on that walk rate. Need to see that click upward. Cam Smith, interestingly enough, I had a question about Cam Smith this morning too. I made my plan before I went into Discord, and the guys we wanted to talk about today were questions in the Discord room. Cam Smith went 4-5, 2 home runs, 3 runs, scored 3 RBIs. And Cam Smith, who was, everyone wanted to be their love child back in March, and I didn't quite understand that, has been much, much better of late. And I will give him mad props for pulling out of what was a really bad start to the season. He's been much better of late, but still pretty league average here. 750 OPS, 150 isolated power mark, 28% strikeout rate. He hasn't done anything outstanding. Now, he is a young player that is establishing himself at the big league level, which is significant. But he hasn't done anything that is overtly impressive. And you look at his StatCast data, I mean, he's bottom 50% in the league in expected WOBA, expected slugging, average exit velocity, barrel rate. This is not great. So is he better than league average? Right now, no. Is that an improvement upon where he was early in the season? Absolutely. Interestingly enough, there haven't been a lot of split issues. In fact, he's had a ton of success against lefties with the power swing. Hold on one moment. Real issue he's had is he has 1 home run and 186 plate appearances against right-handed batters, the pitchers. 1 home run and 186 plate appearances is not going to work. It's not going to work. So he needs to greatly improve his ability to drive the baseball against right-handed pitching for him to pay off. Again, he's fine. Improved of late. Bright future. Just wanted to shout him out because, again, he's been much better of late. Oh, man. My throat's getting a little... sorry about that. Jurickson Profar at the other end of things. Jurickson Profar obviously dealing with a suspension. He started a AAA rehab assignment. Interestingly, you can't play because you're suspended, but you can play in the minors. It's kind of a weird... You get suspended for PEDs, but you can still play in the minor leagues. It's strange... Anyway, he's eligible on July 2nd, so a couple of weeks he'll be back in the big leagues. The Braves have tried White and they've tried Verdugo, and they haven't been able to find a starter in the outfield and left field. It's going to be Profar. Profar will join the outfield. He'll play every day for the Braves. The real question with Profar, I think, in terms of what his outlook is going to be, is where does he hit in the order? Does he hit 2nd or 7th? I think he hits the bottom 3rd. The Braves are so talented. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they put him at 2nd, and that would change my expectations. But I'm assuming at this point he's going to hit down in the order. I assume that he'll return to basically be a slightly better than league average hitter. I wouldn't expect a full rewrite of last season when he had that best year of his career. Well, 2nd best year of his career. Was it his best year of his career? Yeah, that's right. One of his 2 best years. How would we say that? Wouldn't expect a full repeat there. And you never know what's happened when he's been away from the field and all of that. So, missing all that time, we'll see. But he is somebody that very likely should play most days, at least all days, against right-handed pitching and be part of a Braves lineup that is obviously very talented. So for those of you looking for, hey, Ray, I need a name, Jurickson Profar is not the worst name in the world. But again, you got to wait a couple of weeks. He's going to be due back on the field right before July 4th on the 2nd. Alec Burleson is another veteran player. Hit a home run last night, 3 hits last night as well for him. His OPS has gone up 150 points in the last month-ish. Alec Burleson started really slow. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't driving the baseball. Wasn't producing. He wasn't always in the lineup, at least in a spot with any kind of hope of really being a run producer. And just wasn't very good. I mean, look at his OPS here if we go month by month. 600 in April is atrocious. 888 in May, damn good. 968 in June. And he's a guy that I haven't got a single question about Alec Burleson since the season began. Maybe it's because he's boring. I don't know. But, I mean, since the start of June, remember June 888, or May was 888, and we're 100 points above that in June here. He's now got his batting average up to 300. He's got a 350 on base percentage. How many guys or gals, raise your hand if you knew he was hitting 300 with a 350 on base percentage? Okay, he's got a 346 on base percentage, but you get the point. I bet no one's hands up. He's really come on extremely strong. All of a sudden, he looks like the guy that we expected him to be, which is a lefty swinger facing right-handed pitching. He's even faced some lefties here of late. If you look at his spot in the batting order, He's basically settled into the 5th spot here the last week and a half after hitting 7th. So that's a great increase, going back to where we expected him to be. Alec Burleson having a very solid season after a very slow April. Masataka Yoshida with the Red Sox. Why are we talking about him? Because all of a sudden he's kind of important. Why is he kind of important? Because with Rafael Devers now in the Giants, the Red Sox needs bats. And clearly in the case of Yoshida, he's come back from that shoulder injury. A very effective, very solid major league hitter. Not a power threat by any means, but a guy that gives professional at-bats, right? And the question was, is he going to be able to play the outfield? They don't really want to play him in the outfield because his defense is not great. Well, now he can just be the DH again. So they're hoping to get him back in the lineup soon. He is another player that, is worthy of speculative ad in a lot of deeper mixed league, just like Jurickson, Profar. Because Masataka Yoshida is a 275, 280 hitter, 15 home runs, 75 kind of guy. We've seen it. I think we know exactly who he is. And there's a reasonable expectation he'll be that guy in the second half, playing on a daily basis for the Red Sox. Check his positional qualification. DH only might limit him, especially with his lack of power. But a guy with a good bat and a good offensive game, and he's coming to the Fenway Park near you. Interesting enough, too, the word started to come out, just to put a bow on the Rafael Devers talk. There have been reports coming out that Devers was always kind of willing to play first base. And in fact, he would have played first base for the Red Sox, but we had that whole big back and forth. Why wouldn't he just play first base? Well, apparently Devers wanted the Red Sox to say, "You're our first baseman, go play first base." And the Red Sox wouldn't say that. Devers just wanted to know he's going to play this spot and be in this play, which I think is a fair request for a player, right? Not everyone's a super utility guy. Some guys need to know. And apparently Devers said, "Hey, just tell me I'm the full-time first baseman, I'll play first base." The Red Sox weren't willing to commit to him being the full-time first baseman, so he said, "I'm not playing first base." So that story we had a month and a half ago that shouldn't have been in the media, as we talked about. I don't know why I know why the story. They tried to smear the guy. Why the story was in the press. He wasn't as bad a guy as it appeared to be. He just wanted some clarity from the team, and apparently they didn't give it to him. So we'll see what happens with the Red Sox. They got a lot of things to figure out, but Masataka Yoshida is coming soon. Tyler Freeman, we talked about on the show yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah, it must have been yesterday. It wasn't on Monday. We talked about him on the show yesterday. He went out and got hit 3 times by a pitch yesterday to tie a Rockies record. He reached base 5 times yesterday. His on-base percentage over 400. Check out the show yesterday, episode 423, for a little bit more on Tyler Freeman. Luis Garcia's got a boring name and a somewhat boring game, but much like Alec Burleson, he's improved tremendously here of late. And he had a 6-home run last night. All of a sudden, he's batting .333 over his last 9 games, or last 21 games, excuse me. It's a pretty good streak here for a guy that a lot of people drafted, then were extremely disappointed with early on. I know a lot of people dropped him early on, and not saying it was the wrong move. It's not like his numbers jump off the page. But after hitting 18 home runs with 22 steals last season, he's now got 6 home runs and 7 steals in 64 games. So he's down pace-wise from last year, but we're still talking about a guy who's on pace to go 15-15, which would have fit right in with expectations. At least they should have been. I know a lot of people see a guy perform and they always up the expectations, but if we were reasonable with the expectations, maybe he repeated them from last year, more likely pulled back a little bit, as I said in the preseason. It's kind of the pace he's on right now. And with this hot run of late, all the numbers are starting to look pretty much okay. Again, it's not a ringing endorsement for Luis Garcia because he's still a very average player that just steals some bases, has a little bit of power. But he is in a very nice stretch right now. I know a lot of you play the game on a shorter basis. You're in head-to-head. You're looking to improve things on the short term. You don't necessarily give a guy 3 or 4 months to play things out. If that's the case, Luis Garcia might be a name to keep in mind for an addition to your squad. A couple of pitchers before we talk some Dynasty football with Rich Maletto of FantasyGuru.com. Walker Buehler got blasted again. Gave up 8 runs yesterday, and his ERA is now 6, and his WHIP is 1.5. He is nowhere near the pitcher he was prior to surgery. This is a shining example of why so many pitchers don't want to have surgery. A lot of us believe you have Tommy John surgery, your arm is fixed, you're great. Not always the case. It's not the case with Walker Buehler. Buehler before surgery was a dominant top of the rotation arm. Now he's looking a lot like a 5th starter. And it's not coming together for him this year. Remember, he took forever to come back from Tommy John surgery. They were so cautious with him. And it seems like everything they did didn't work. He hasn't had a physical setback So I guess it worked in that sense, but he's just not the same pitcher he was. You have to forget the name Walker Buehler meaning-wise in your head, because that is not who he is right now. He's not even rosterable in most mixed leagues at this point. And it's the guy that was vying for the Cy Young Award before he was hurt. Andrew Abbott gave up 5 runs yesterday. Only 1 was earned. So the ERA still looks beautiful with Andrew Abbott. But realize he still did give up the runs yesterday. And as we've discussed previously with him, his ratios look fantastic. He's been pitching tremendous baseball for the Reds for the most part. But remember, those ratios are going to go up in the second half. Lots of fly balls here. He's going to give up home runs when the weather starts warming up in Cincinnati in particular. He's been very fortunate to have the ratios be as low as they are right now. Behind that, there's a little bit of concern. So Andrew Abbott's prime sell-high guy. If you play that game right now, things should start to level off as the innings pile up with Andrew Abbott. Jesus Luzardo, 5 innings. Someone asked me in Discord, what the hell's wrong with Jesus Luzardo? And it's like, well, he gave up 4 runs in 5 innings yesterday. Now, through 5 innings, he'd given up 2 runs. He's pitching okay. What happened? Well, Nick Castellanos apparently got an argument with his manager. Oddly, the manager talked about it in public, which is kind of weird. But Castellanos is basically benched because I guess he said something the manager didn't like. Why is this important? Well, he's the left fielder. Max Kepler played left field yesterday, or played right field yesterday. Castellanos is the right fielder. Kepler played right field yesterday for the first time this season. There was a fly ball hit by Xavier Edwards that he lost in the lights. So that ends up being a base hit. Luzardo ends up coming out of the game. The bullpen comes in. The bullpen gives up 2 of the base runners that were Luzardo's. So Luzardo ends up giving up 4 runs when really, if Castellanos is out there, maybe the ball's caught. If the bullpen gets the outs, maybe it's 2 runs instead of 4. So Luzardo didn't pitch great yesterday, but realize the results also weren't as bad as it might look if you just looked at the box score. Let's see here. Shohei Ohtani is going to continue to do the opener thing. We talked about this yesterday. They said he was going to pitch once a week. Now they're saying he might pitch Saturday or Sunday. So apparently this once a week thing, I guess it doesn't matter if you're throwing 30 pitches. So we'll watch him. Get back out there probably this weekend. Difficult, obviously, to start him. And I had a question yesterday about even rostering him as a starting pitcher. It's going to take a while for him to get the pitch count up. So, until he's up to 75, 85 pitches, which might be 3 or 4 or 5 starts from now, until he gets to that point, he's a very difficult guy to utilize in fantasy as a pitcher. And he's a tough hold if you have him just as a pitcher, because obviously as an opener, he's not going deep enough in a game to qualify for a victory. And finally, Shelby Miller. I mean, this is the Diamondbacks. Whoa. They lost Martinez, who's having Tommy John surgery. It looks like AJ Puck is going to have Tommy John surgery. So they're 1 and 2 guys. Looks like they're both done for the season with Tommy John surgery. Shelby Miller, for the most part, has pitched very well this season, but yesterday gave up 2 home runs in the 9th inning to blow the game. Diamondbacks got to get that 9th inning figured out. And it's not their fault that their 2 top guys are out with injuries. Shelby Miller's pitched again very well overall. He's an older guy with some good stuff, but come on. That's probably a position, the bullpen, where you can look for the Diamondbacks to make a move here. Still look at Miller as the guy that they'll have in the 9th inning right now, but they got to get that situation on lockdown so the pitching can support that good offense with the Diamondbacks. All right, so that's the baseball talk. I'll be back on tomorrow with baseball as always. We'll talk tomorrow for about a half hour before visiting on a Thursday with Tyler Beaker and talking some football. I'm not usually here on Wednesday, so I don't usually get to talk to this guy. But this week, because my schedule was changed, I do get a chance to talk to this guy. Now, we talk all the time off air, but now we get to talk on air for you all to see. And that's Rich Maletto, the fantasy Bosco of fantasyguru.com. So let's bring in Rich. How you doing today, Rich?
Good. How are you? When are you having Tommy John surgery, Ray?
Yeah, I it's so funny you say that. If I play too aggressively with my dog soon, I'm very cautious when I throw the ball. And it's funny, my gal even times a lot when we're together walking, and she'll like, Ray, let me throw the ball. I'm like, it's okay. But I got to be careful. My elbow is, I can feel it. I'm pretty sure that if I let a couple of those balls, like if I went to one of the fairs and try to see how hard I could throw the ball without warming up, I definitely would have the surgery, because I've had elbow problems my whole life. I've had cortisone shots and all this stuff from playing. So it could happen soon, Rich. What about you? How's your body holding up?
Oh, well, I don't know if it's holding up very well. I've got 2 shoulders that probably need surgery, and I refuse to do it. One already had surgery. So I know what you mean by throwing the ball. If I go to the fair and do the 3 ball throws, I throw one as hard as I can. I just dump the other one, and I throw the third one as hard as I can so it matches the first one, and I'm done throwing. So I win my little prize, and I move on because my shoulder's junk. When we play football, I tell everyone, I've got one good throw in me, and then that's it. So you need one play.
Right.
I'll make a money pass one time, and that's it.
I've talked about it on the show, too. I've actually got a couple of small tears in my left rotator cuff. And so I've been doing therapy and all that stuff, too. So it's hell getting old. But I guess, as my dad used to say, we're getting older, which is the important thing, right? So you deal
it's a
with
valid
it.
outlook. I didn't look at it that way.
Yeah, it's good if you can, even though we're getting out of bed kind of. Rich Maletto of fantasyguru.com joining us here. Again, you can find him all the time in Discord over at fantasyguru.com, answering probably more questions than the rest of the staff combined. He's a monster in Discord. You can find his articles and his write-ups as part of the draft guide, too, at FG. Remember, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner and get signed up. And, Rich, we thought we'd have a discussion with you. We talked about it a little bit before the show, and we said, let's talk about Dynasty League, because that's been obviously a huge thing for us to cover here over the last couple of months. The Discord room is exploding with information, questions. Let's start out with some basics. Everyone wants to trade all the time. And I mean all the time.
Chasing action.
Yeah, there are people that ask questions every single day about trades. Everyone wants to trade. So let me ask a very simple starting point question. When do we trade and when don't we trade? I know there's specifics we can get into, but as a general rule, when should we trade and when shouldn't we trade, Rich?
So as a basic rule for me, I would argue the only reason to trade is to make a significant upgrade. And maybe that's more applies for redraft, right? Because you should trade from a position of strength for a position of weakness and try to upgrade. I understand in the dynasty space, there's an argument to be made to trade in order to retool, restock, or to rebuild, right? So, I mean, if you're not competitive and you have a couple of really good players, obviously it makes a lot more sense to trade those players to get some draft capital to try to make some other, acquisitions and upgrades. But as a general rule for me, I don't believe in trading unless it's to make a significant upgrade. And the reason for that is I may be gun shy on trading, Ray, but I feel like it creates this addiction of chasing action, and people just want action, want something to do, and it sounds cool. When the fact of the matter is, people, in all fairness, people pay us to help predict the future, right? I mean, we're prognosticating, right? That's what we're doing, and we're trying to use historical data to lead us down the right path. But let's be fair. If we were good at predicting the future all the time at everything, we'd all be millionaires and wouldn't be doing this. So let's keep in mind that expectations of the future aren't given. And I feel like people just assume, oh, I know this player is going to be good later. And everyone has their own way of rating players, right? Figuring out what it is. However, I mean, okay, Ray, I respect you, respect me. We may have a different market value on a player. I'm not sure either one of us is right. Both of us could be wrong. But the fact is I have to convince you, or you have to convince me, that your market value is the fair market value or the reasonable one, and have to convince me to pay that. So for me, trading is it's multi-tiered with a lot of things outside of our control. And I don't like games outside of my control, right? Like I want to be able to control what I can control and fix what I can control. So if I have to rely on convincing you of something in order to make something work, that's a challenge for me. Now, I think some people crave that action. Some people really embrace and do an excellent job of, Ray, feeling you out, understanding, hey, Ray's higher on this guy than me. Maybe I can work out a deal. I don't love this player, but it'll work. And this is where I say, we need to do better as a whole in the industry as far as understanding tiers and assets. Like heard Jeff say it on the air the other day. We got to stop getting attached to these guys, right? They're professionals playing a job. Look at them as such. Don't look at them as it's your best buddy that you're really hoping goes on to be a superstar. The data doesn't support that. We can't do anything about it. So I think that when you trade and when not to trade is a little tricky because it does vary from person to person. But for me, it's strictly based on I need an upgrade. Whether that's converting draft picks to get that other receiver I need, whether that's taking that receiver 2 I have into a receiver 1, something like that. For me, it comes down to as an upgrade. That's where I think it's best used as a tool.
Talking Dynasty Football is Rich Maletto of FantasyGuru.com. And I think you said something that hit home for me, Rich, and that is that, you just hypothetically, you love Brock Purdy, and I'm not saying that Rich does, hypothetically.
No,
but he loves Randy Moss. He loves Randy Moss. I don't really like Randy Moss. Trade partner hates Randy Moss. So we got 3 different opinions there. It's really hard for us to give advice to somebody on what the value of what a player's trade market value is, because you, the 2 people involved in the trade, we all might look at this differently. And so it is difficult to put ourselves in the position of understanding all those dynamics. We simply don't have the information. So what I often say to people, Rich, is I say, look, you're trying to improve at the running back position. Okay. Find a team that has extra running backs. Don't just say, I want Saquon Barkley. Well, the team that has Saquon Barkley may not be able to trade Saquon Barkley. You need a running back. Find the team that has running backs. Then take the second step. Okay, I need a running back. I've got a lot of receivers. If the other team has Nico Collins and Drake London and DK Metcalf, they don't need a receiver. So you have to find that fit. Is that something that you find people don't do enough of? I find too much that people they want Barkley, they want London, they want Brock Purdy, and they don't find the fit, which I think causes a lot of problems on the trade market.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Ray. I would argue the people you see that are successful traders do exactly what you suggested. They go, I need a running back. So let me go narrow down which teams have an excess of riches at running back. Maybe it's Kyren Williams. Maybe it's Devon Achane. Maybe it's Barkley. Chances are that you're right. People get so enamored. I really want this player. You get in that pitfall. First of all, you're going to end up paying for that player, first and foremost. But secondly, you totally take away your trading market. You need to have as many options as possible if you're going to pull off successful, fair trades. So in that scenario, I think you hit the nail on the head. And let's just say you are extra depth at receiver. Okay, well, now you've nailed down 4 teams that have an excess at running back. Only 2 of them really need a receiver. Now you have potential trade partners. Here's the deal. I would recommend sending out offers to both teams. Contact both teams. Feel out, if you can, the best traders find a way to text, DM, call the other trade partner, and they just ask them questions like, how do you view this player? Who do you like more? Do you like DK more, or do you like Puka more? Oh, I'm way higher. I think DK is going to eat this year. Okay, well, now I know if I'm going to entice your interest, I need to put DK in the deal. But I was fine with it. I had 3 or 4 receivers. He was a part of my group. Cool. Now I know this is going to get your interest. Now I'll ask you, okay, well, you've got Bijan Robinson and Barkley and Kyren Williams and Devon Achane. How would you rank those 4? Well, you got Achane at the bottom. Okay, well, now I know that's the guy they like the least. I can probably put together a package deal. And if you're high on Metcalf and low on Achane, maybe I can squeeze a little bit more out of it. That's what the really good traders do. The Mike Dempseys of the world, right? Like, he's notorious for feeling people out on how they view people and whatnot, and finding a way to squeeze a little bit more from them, right? Those people are good at it. I'll be frank, Ray. I'm not great at that. I have to contact people all day long for my job. The last thing I want to do is start reaching out to people and be like, hey, well, how do you view this? How do you do that? There's a lot going on. That's just not me, but more power to the people that do it, because that's the way to be successful. I do not think people do that enough. I think they do exactly what you said is a pitfall. Well, I want a running back and I want Barkley. Well, there's only one team that has Barkley. And if they don't need anything you have, you might as well beat your head against a brick wall. Because what are you going to offer them that's going to entice their interest to make a deal? This is all about making a deal. This is, at simplest form, this is the ancient barter system. That's what we're doing. We're trying to barter, trade asset for asset. So when you're set on one asset, and then the other person doesn't need the assets you have, you really created a challenge for yourself.
Rich Maletto, FantasyGuru.com. I think that, we all would say, hey, look, I want Saquon Barkley as an example as we further this conversation a little bit. But what I think people need to do, and this is something that they don't do, is they say, I need a running back 1. Can't say I want Saquon Barkley. You need a running back 1. So you can get Devon Achane. You could get Josh Jacobs. You get Jonathan Taylor, right? And I wish people would look at it more that way. They don't, and I completely understand why. You want Saquon Barkley. I get it. But you have to, I think, look at it in a more of a broad picture. Going back to something you said, Rich, you need the 1,500 yards and the 12 touchdowns.
Right.
Doesn't matter who the name is on the jersey. You need the production, right? So I think too often people get focused on that one or two players, and then they end up making a bad trade. They end up overpaying for the player. The person on the other side, I got 4 running back ones. They only keep asking about this one guy. Guess what? I'm going to raise the price. Am I off on that? Because it's not as fun to say I just need the numbers versus I want Barkley. But if you want Barkley and you get Jonathan Taylor instead, isn't that okay?
I think you hit the nail on the head. But, when we look at drafting in these things, right, don't we do that? Don't we try to separate the names from the numbers? We talk a lot about that during waivers, and this goes back years. Quit looking at the name, especially on waivers. The first few weeks, start looking at the numbers, disassociate the name from the numbers. Don't let the name poison your thought process. And I think that's exactly what people do. They think if I have this player, I'm going to look like this. I'm going to love to look at my roster. The people that are good at trades don't look at player names. They look at assets. Those players are nothing more than stock items to them. Doesn't matter if it's Apple stock or Walmart stock. Those are tier 1 stock companies, and that's all they see them as. There is no emotional connection. There is no desire to be connected with that player. And I think that's just a pitfall of fantasy players in general. Part of us all play because we're fans. And I've said this before. I'm guilty of telling people this. If you want to play as a fan, that's your choice. Mm-hmm. I understand you want to have some fun. We play this for fun. So if it's a $20 league and you don't care about the $20 and you want to have fun, by all means, be super bold. Go after anyone you want. Play loose. But if you're in these high stakes leagues, don't even really allow trades. But even if you're in a higher value league, understand that if the goal, I heard you and I talked about this. If your actions don't match up to your goals, you're failing. So if your goal is to win the league and win money, quit associating names with the production. If your goal is to win the league and win that money, quit chasing the action from a trading standpoint. Understand that all your actions need to match up. And you and I have come across this with the trades. How many times do we look at a trade and be like, I don't understand the goal here? You're swapping pawns. You're going RB1 to RB1, receiver 2 to receiver 2. What is your goal here? Well, I really like Puka Nacua. Okay, but then you don't need our expertise on this, because the fact of the matter is you're just trying to make a player swap for a player you want. I don't consider that necessarily a good approach to trading.
Rich Maletto of fantasyguru.com. Yeah, that's something that we do see a lot of, and I call those challenge trades. I don't know if that's the right way to call it, but the running back 1, wide receiver 1 for the running back 1, wide receiver 1.
I don't know if we lost me or lost Ray.
Oh, I'm here. I hear you. You don't hear me?
I apologize, because I'm not usually on the side where people can see and hear me.
We can. Oh, Rich. Let me send a note to Rich. I can hear you. Where are you at, Rich?
But we are showing live, and I'm showing Ray not there.
Oh, well, I'm here. I'm just telling Rich here. Can hear and see.
But bottom line, I would argue that trading is a great tool if you're savvy about it. But people need to do a better job of having a set goal of what they're trading for, and understand you need more than just one pick to look at, one player.
Rich Maletto's having problems, I guess, with his stuff here, because in his Ferrari they don't have Wi-Fi or something. No, Rich, we got you. You're good. I don't know what happens with the technology. It's always interesting when you're in the car. Sometimes you've had the sunroof open, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a little bright. Either way. It's Rich Maletto at fantasyguru.com. Another thing to talk about with the trade market, Rich, and especially in the dynasty leagues, is dynasty or redraft for that matter, is that, okay, I need a running back. Okay, cool. You need a running back. And then you see the person do a trade, and it's for 1 running back. There's a quarterback in there. There's 2 running backs in there. There's a wide receiver in there. You need a running back, and somehow you're doing a 7-piece trade. Is there a limit? I always say 4 pieces, whether they're draft picks or players. 4 pieces is the tops. Maybe 5, maybe. But sometimes we see these questions where it's like 7, 8 pieces being traded. That's just too much for me. What say you?
I'm 100% agreement with you. I have been guilty of doing some of the bigger trades, and I rarely feel comfortable afterwards. And I think part of the challenge there is there's a lot of unknown variables, right? Especially if you get draft picks involved. we don't know what the draft class is going to be next year. We don't know what it's going to be 2 years from now. And so those picks could end up being really high value, and they could end up being not so high value. A player, I don't know how many trades I've done, Ray, where, man, I really feel like I got the best player in the deal. 3 years later, I got the sour end of the trade. Not because it was a lopsided trade. The player I got hurt. Coaching change came in. Their production was never what it once was or what the expectation was, and I lost out. Again, this goes back to the future predicting and all of that. I'm with you. If you want a running back, make a deal for a running back. When you start making the deal for the running back and the quarterback, you really got to do a good job of breaking down the trade pieces. You know, if you're going to get 4 picks coming back and you're trading away 2, make sure you break down what those picks equate to for the players. And it becomes very challenging, I think, for most people. A lot of people, sound stupid, but write it down. Literally, go get a piece of paper, write down. I pick 1, pick 2 is equal to this player. I feel good with that value. This and this is equal to this player. I feel good with that value. Or it doesn't feel good with that value. I honestly think people need to take a little more time of writing it out and really breaking it down piece by piece.
Rich, what about, since we both mentioned the draft pick piece, let's talk about that more directly. For me, draft picks are like toilet paper. I could care less. Just give me something to wipe my ass, right? Like, and people, I love this. Well, I'm getting a first round pick. Is it the 2nd pick or the 12th pick? It's a huge difference. Well, yeah, I know. How many times have you thought your team was going to be good and it hasn't done well, or even had the other direction, right? Oh, it's that guy's team's terrible. I'm going to probably be the 2nd pick. And then that guy on the other side goes 11-3. It's like, oh, well, then I'm now the pick's the 11th pick. So that part, throws me off. I don't know how many people in dynasty leagues have never done a dynasty league before, but I've been in a dynasty league for like a decade now. The first round is terrible. Like half the first round is a mess every year. And it doesn't get better as we go later in the draft. Second round doesn't get better. Third round, fourth round. So to me, picks don't mean anything. I will give picks and trades all the time. Give me the known. Give me the guy. Give me the guy that's going to help me win this year. Here's a draft pick. I don't care. Other people will hoard picks, and we'll see. We see people that I got 15 draft picks. We have 6 rounds. Whoa, okay, great, right? What are your thoughts on draft picks in general? I don't care because it's unknown, and I want knowns. What do you think?
I think both approaches can work. I don't disagree with your approach at all because, let's face it, known entities are a great way to know what you're going to get and how to build your roster, right? At the same time, you've seen me kind of preach about this in Discord, and I've been guilty of it. Hold your first round picks. And the reason I say that, market value is always high on them. You're not wrong. We can go through how many players actually pop. Now, most of them do happen in the first round, right? So your best likelihood of hitting on a player is with a first round pick. As we get closer to our drafts, after the NFL draft, after the NFL combine, those draft picks skyrocket in value. So I actually don't mind accruing late first round picks, especially if you have a roster that's deep enough, because you can get him as more of a throwing piece because it's 2 years down the road. So someone is more willing to deal with that piece. Yet I know 2 years from now, I'm going to have a first round pick that as we get close to the draft, I can probably use that first round pick and it'll be a nice piece to be able to leverage a wide receiver 1, a running back 1, a tight end 1, or in a super flex league, getting that third quarterback that I need. So I'm with you. No problem going after those known assets. That is a savvy way to do it and a way to turn that capital into real things because they are dart throws, Ray. You don't know right now, everybody that got drafted in the first round, are you 100% certain all 12 of them are going to pop this year? Because I'm not. No. Right. So if we hit on 30 or 40%, we did pretty good, right? Ray, that's not a very good hit percentage. Yet I'm willing to bet if you traded a first round pick for a player, that player performed for you for at least that next year or two. You know what you got. So I'm all for that, but there's, and especially when you're rebuilding, you kind of have to stockpile. But this is why I tell people, very, very careful dealing out those first round picks because you find yourself wanting to have a first round pick and don't. So now you overpay somebody else for their first round pick because you sold yours for a player and you were close to competing or winning it all, but you didn't. So now you're trying to get another first back because you feel like you're left out and you want another asset. So understand how you like to play. I would argue is a big part of it. if you're someone that's going to be really hating life because you don't have a pick, then be careful trading them away. But if you're trying to compete now, I did this in a league I'm in. I basically mortgaged the first 2 to 3 rounds of the next 2 years because I was on the cusp. I got known entities. It literally moved. It's just pre-rate. It's ratings on some website, right? But I went from the bottom to top 3. So turning them into known assets was a big help. Now, the futures, may not be so bright tomorrow, but as we sit today, that's how it is.
Rich Maletto of fantasyguru.com. I think you mentioned this market value. Let's hit on that for a second. I sometimes talk to people, as you do too, are great users over at fantasyguru.com. Remember, you can sign up, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. And whatever package you sign up for, DFS, seasonal wagering, you get access to that Discord room. A lot of people don't really, in my opinion, time things right.
Oh.
Like Jordan Addison, now we're hearing, oh my gosh, he's going to court next month, he might get suspended. So is now the time to trade for him? Is now the time to trade him away? It depends on the value of what the deal is, but that's something to think about. When Jameson Williams is getting all these reports, Jameson Williams went for 1,000 yards last year. Is he going to go for 2,000 this year? Using these storylines, then you get the story, so you get the positives and negatives. I don't see people reacting to that news in a way that I think is advantageous to them. Because when the player's soaring in the media and everyone's talking about the player and they're flying up draft boards, that's probably a pretty good time to consider moving on from the guy. And conversely, trading a guy when there's a cloud hanging over his head about a suspension or something like that, are you really getting the best value for the player?
Perfect example, right? DK Metcalf and George Pickens. Once DK Metcalf got to the Steelers, how many people soured on it? Because a lot of people like Pickens. Now, there were some people that were savvy enough to go, there's no way the Steelers are keeping both of these receivers. Somebody's going to get moved. It's going to be George, most likely. I would argue that was the time to trade for Metcalf. We didn't know about Rodgers. The quarterback situation was all over the place. Now, you could argue, well, you're buying a depreciating asset. We don't know what's going to happen. Sure, but based on Metcalf's age, based on the fact the Steelers don't typically trade for big stars, and they did trade for this big star, I would argue maybe this year might be rough, but the future is still bright for him. That would have been the time to buy, I would argue. But to your point, I don't think people do that. They wait to buy when the hype is up. Well, now the price is up. If the price is up, it goes back to the stocks. What do we always hear about stocks? Buy low, sell high. Stocks are the same way. It's all about timing. New report comes out that earnings are up. Well, I hope you bought last week, because now when you go to buy, that stock price is now inflated. And if you buy at the inflated price and then the next quarter earnings are down, now you just lost on that deal. And trading in football is the exact same way. So I think the timing portion of it is not focused on enough. And I think you're spot on. People really do it backwards most of the time.
Rich, can you have too many rookies? I know if we're in a rebuild mode, we want to have young guys and all that, but I get the sense that some people, and you see it in their rosters when they share, it's like their entire team, no one has played more than 30 games in the NFL. Their entire team, everybody. Even in a rebuild, can you be too rookie heavy?
In a rebuild, maybe you could argue it's worth having as many dart throws as possible because you don't know which ones are going to stick, right? Mm-hmm. It is kind of like throwing paint at the wall. So at the right cost, maybe being overloaded on it, because in all fairness, if you're rebuilding, you have no aspirations of competing, right? So being poor and having more early picks doesn't hurt you in that sense. That being said, I'm sure you've seen this, Ray. There seems to be, I don't want to say an epidemic, but some people really get caught constantly rebuilding, where it's just more rookies after more rookies after more rookies after more rookies, instead of converting some of those unknown assets early on that still have some, prosperous future for known entities, right? Like maybe trading a Caleb Johnson, for example, with a later draft pick for somebody like Saquon Barkley, especially if you're wanting to win now, right? Mm-hmm. If you're trying to win in the future, that's not an ideal trade, but you get kind of what I'm saying here. So I think there is a challenge there that some people, I think age sometimes gets overplayed. There's a group that basically ignores it too much. And then I think there's a group that relies on it far too much, where I don't want anybody old. Well, I would argue it's like anything in life. You need to have a balance.
Oh, really? That's a good thing? Yeah. 3 beers is okay, 13 isn't? Who knew?
Yeah, you know,
No
I
idea.
mean, you know, moderation is kind of a good thing. Just
Yeah.
throwing it out there.
Rich Maletto, fantasyguru.com. One thing before we leave this conversation, Rich, you wanted to talk about handcuffs. What is a handcuff? How does it work? What inspired this? Because I asked Rich before the show, hey, what do you want to talk about? And this is one of the things he mentioned. You kind of seem to intimate, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, that people don't necessarily understand what we're preaching when we say handcuffing. Is that kind of the sense that you wanted to talk about?
I think you're spot on with it.
Okay.
I love the fact that I'm with an organization that believes in handcuffing as a general rule. Most of us, I know not everybody does, but most of us, and maybe it's because a lot of us are old. I don't know. But handcuffing has saved me. And as much as people want to say it's pointless and it pays to take a chance on somebody else's backup, because now you can have a plethora of starting running backs. Okay, well, that plethora helps you if you're willing to trade. Otherwise, you just have roster decisions to make, and it doesn't help. I have no desire to insure my neighbor's house if it burns down. However, if their house burns down, I want to make sure my house is insured in case some coals jump or anything like that. I'm okay building my roster such that if I lose one of my top assets, and Ray, I'll be the first. I handcuff quarterback in Superflex sometimes. I've handcuffed receivers and tight ends in certain leagues at times. It depends on the situation, depends on the player. But if I have a top asset, I want protection if something happens. If I lose them for a month and I can get 80 to 90% of the same production just by simply rostering their backup for free, cost me no money, just a roster spot, I'm going to do it. The problem is I think people take it too far and assume everybody's backup is everybody's handcuff. You know, when we talked about it, the Denver backfield's the one that comes to mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing everyone's worried about Dobbins and Estime. Dobbins and Estime are a thing. Harvey, what we believe Harvey will be, which we haven't seen yet, but based on Sean Payton's history, how we've seen backs in his offense used before, did you ever consider Mark Ingram the handcuff to Alvin Kamara, Ray?
No, you kind of like Gibbs and Montgomery now. No, they're just standalone pieces that you played.
Right. So I don't see Audric Estime as Harvey's handcuff. I don't see J.K. Dobbins as Harvey's handcuff. If there is a handcuff, I would argue it's Jaleel McLaughlin. Whether I have a lot of faith there or not, it's a whole different issue. But I would argue that's the handcuff to Harvey. And if you have Estime or Dobbins, one of them is the handcuff. Then you could look at a situation like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. They're studs. How do we insure ourselves with them? Here's the problem. Look at the roster. They don't have a handcuff on that roster, Ray. Nobody on Philly does what Barkley does. Now, you can use A.J. Dillon in a combination with Will Shipley and get Barkley-like production from those two guys, right? You could look at now Baltimore. I don't know what Baltimore's going to do if Derrick Henry goes down. Yeah, because they got nobody. They have a bunch of other bodies that do what Henry doesn't do and nothing that Henry does. So, but to illustrate the point, there's no handcuffs. So don't waste a spot handcuffing Henry. That's why sometimes I would rather have a Kyren Williams where I think a Jarquez Hunter is the handcuff, because I think I can get Kyren at a decent price and I can get a handcuff at a decent price and he's handcuffable. So for me, that's a selling point on Kyren that maybe I'm a little higher on Kyren than others. But overall, I'm 100% with you, Ray. I think that's exactly part of the problem. And I think the way you and Jeff get beat up on handcuffing when you guys talk about it on air drives me bonkers.
Drives me bonkers too, Rich. Rich Maletto of fantasyguru.com. By the way, for those people wondering about my Dynasty team, last Friday on the show here, Russell Clay and I spent a half hour going over my Dynasty redraft team. So check that out, the show last Friday. Rich, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Obviously, really important to have you on to showcase your great work, give you a chance to talk about the Dynasty stuff.
Thanks,
we're always talking about it behind the scenes. I know you're on the show here frequently. I know that you're on the Discord, the live stream on Tuesday nights frequently. What else you got coming down the pipe here in short order over at fantasyguru.com?
So we got the Race Guru Thunder Hour that'll come out tomorrow. We'll be recording that tonight. We got a guest on tonight, so that should be pretty interesting. Mark Hogan and Sean Angle are a part of that. That's a lot of fun. I'll have a NASCAR overview article. Helping out in Discord on the football stuff. I don't have anything pressing on the football table. My football article's already dropped, Scoring Dependency. Please feel free to check that out. I welcome anyone's thoughts. I almost want to go back through it because I kind of had some more time to let the data marinate a little bit more. So I wouldn't mind going back through that. So anyone's got any questions and thoughts, I'd love to discuss that because that's always a fun topic.
By the way, you go to the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page to find this show. So you can find all the old episodes of Fantasy Sports Daily, the Race Guru Thunder Hour, you can find there as well. You can also go to youtube.com/@Elite+ Network to find this show and the award-nominated show, Race Guru Thunder Hour. Rich is obviously a huge part of that, and he's a guy that likes to talk rubbing his racing, and he likes to talk tackling too. So he's a good dude. So Rich, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it. You're basically coming on every Wednesday now, right? This is kind of your standard thing here on the show.
Yep, during the summer, Fensty usually has me on during the summer and into the fall on Wednesdays. And on, look, I really appreciate it, Ray. I appreciate when you guys have had me on air with you. That's always a big honor for me on Sirius. It's a big honor for me to come on the show with you. And we don't get to talk all the time on air, Ray. So we do talk off air. I want people to think that, but it is always a pleasure to speak with you and really appreciate the kind words, man.
Oh, well, thank you for the kind words as well. Back at you, Rich. Rich Maletto, FantasyGuru.com. You can find him on Twitter, X @FantasyBosco. You can find him as Rich Maletto in Discord, and he answers pretty much every single question. Give him a little time, but he'll eventually get there. Thanks for your visit today, Rich. Appreciate you spending time talking some Dynasty football with us, and you'll be back on next Wednesday with Justin.
Sounds good. See you later, Ray.
You got it. He's Rich Maletto. I'm Ray Flowers. We'll be back tomorrow here on the show, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's a Thursday, so we'll talk football with Tyler Beaker after that first half hour of baseball with me solo. For Rich, I'm Ray. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com.